Thomas Manning III. I suffered a bit of a transition and calamity in my life in November, in which I had an opportunity to spend several weeks in hotels downtown. And as a smoker, I stood outside and spoke to the homeless. My first night downtown, I was with my partner, who was a Costco executive for 27 years. And I saw some kids out in the rain across the street from the Mayflower Hotel. And we had a beautiful evening, lovely dinner. And there were some kids that had left the youth shelter. And they hadn't eaten, and it was raining outside. I went and I spoke to them. They said that they hadn't eaten and they had the shits and were throwing up for 10 days. I tried to express to my partner the concern that I had for the fact that there were kids outside. And it appears as though there's a lot of people in the community that don't have any sense for other people other than their own core group. Or, it's easy to walk by people and consider them to be invisible. But when you're having a cigarette, you have a chat. And so, maybe you should stop and chat to some of these people. Some of them are veterans. Some are quite creative, quite talented, quite lovely, quite musical, quite emotional, quite sensitive, and quite damaged. What I found within the homeless community that I've been exposed to is that most of them are suffering from a sense of bereavement that has been ignored by not only their families, but by the community, or by, how people are not disposable. And so if we're disposing of souls within our own community, it affects all of our souls. And so the corruption is evident to me. I'm a corruption annihilator. I see corruption where it exists. I see corruption when I walk into a room. I know who's important. I know who's not. This isn't about how special I am. This is about how distraught I feel about the reality that I see in the pain and the death and the destruction being caused by the corruption that is intrinsic in any organization, but it doesn't and cannot exist in charity. I'm sorry. If it exists in charity, then the people should be put in chains that are taking advantage of those that are at a disadvantage. And we as a society are not at a disadvantage. I can tell you, Seattle is innovative. It is a tech group. I personally lost hundreds of thousands of dollars myself and experienced tremendous delays because of Amazon's expansion. I know that Jeff Bezos isn't a bad guy, but if he actually cared about other businesses, small and medium and large, he wouldn't be where he's at today as well. So I'm not necessarily faulting him. I'm faulting human nature that we all have, but we can't walk by these people anymore. It's in our face. These people are part of our community, and if they're not part of our community, we have to welcome all that are new with innovation. So, being that we are the richest city, and being that I have wasted millions of my own dollars and my own enterprises in my own life, I think that we can take the money that's being wasted in the corruption and put it to the use that it belongs. Now, those who have died have no voice. Those souls do have a voice because they speak through the people who are still alive that know the system is intrinsically faulted. So what I believe that is necessary is that all of these charities have to be disbanded as private enterprises and have those assets utilized immediately in the most effective way to be able to beautify the city. So the city art construction budget needs to be liquidated in order to beautify the city by getting the homeless off the street. The nonsense of the statistics that I see in harm reduction is nonsense. That I won't bother explaining. All I want to explain to the city of Seattle is that people are dying on our watch because of the corruption in the system and the poor nutrition. Poor nutrition, horrific sanitation. I myself got cellulitis. I've had, community-acquired pneumonia. I've had a fever of 103. I was in an isolation room at the VA after only being in a shelter for 2 days, looking to speak to other shattered veterans. And I'm not a shattered veteran from my military experience, but I'm shattered as a veteran. To see these shattered veterans that are being ignored by the Wounded Warrior Program, and then to have DESC in Plymouth, and then Lehigh, and my God, the Catholic Housing Services. Who on earth would put a Catholic in charge of anything? I mean, for the epic sins against our society, and now they're doing a land grab, and they're mitigating and managing the morality of what? People that don't really care. No. The fact is that this isn't about harm reduction. We cannot have wet shelters. There is no real solution except for compassion and love, good nutrition. Health, welfare, and well-being comes from the wellness and the worthiness that we can well up from, within ourselves if in fact we feel worthy of it. So, these people that are suffering bereavement and these people that were molested as children is, mostly the edicts that I see within this homeless community that we as a society are abandoning. I won't. It comes down to what would you do if you knew? Well, I know too much, and I know that it's a criminal organization. It has been proven repeatedly. Everybody in the organization as a client feels as though it's a criminal organization, which means that it is. People are being offered slop for food, they're calling it meals. People are getting paper bags with peanut butter sandwiches, and Muslims are getting ham sandwiches for lunch, and nobody seems to give a fuck about anybody's religious proclivities or whether or not they survive. This is not about getting everybody off of drugs. This is not about supplying them with drugs or putting them in places where they can get drugs and alcohol. This is about the senselessness of the fact that addiction is a cancer in our society. It's a cancer that could afflict anyone in our families. It might not afflict us, but it does afflict us if it's part of our community, and we can't just be a disposable society when it comes to the souls that represent our Emerald City of hospitality. So, I don't know, take a hobo to lunch, I don't know. Have Philip Morris send some cigarettes so people aren't sharing them. But, we've got women outside of the shelters because of a shift change that are outside in the danger of Pioneer Square until 9 o'clock with no shelter when the men are inside at 7 everywhere else. It makes no sense. And we're running around, we've got people running around all over town looking for nourishment. We have to stand in line for an hour and a half in the rain, eat a big meal, and then what? Get ready to stand in line for another hour and a half for what? None of this makes sense to anyone. And the hospitalizations repeatedly. I've been to the hospital more times. I've been sick more times in 3 months than I have been in my entire life, only because of the filth of this entire situation. My welfare, my well-being has been endangered, and of my service animal, poor Cash Money. He soldiered up well, and we've done well. Now, if I was a person of diminished capacity, I would be dead. I almost died anyway by accident a few times, and so has he. So all I'm saying is the nonsense of the nonsense is about to stop, because I have people in every single one of these managed buildings that are ready to pop the truth on all of it, because some have recovered. Some have recovered that shouldn't have, and some are in recovery that shouldn't be. And everyone's healthy, wealthy, and wise, and that is a detriment to the community that was actually expecting to flush them and their souls like the ones that have done previously. And so, if it didn't have to do with dignity and human life, I wouldn't be involving myself so intrinsically. So I'm asking the city of Seattle to open up their pockets. If the Ferris wheel costs $44 million, then as it spins, God for help us for our sins. For fuck's sake, I know that I've blown at least $5 million in my life on nonsense that I would be ashamed to do again, and I wouldn't do again, knowing that it has a better application in something like this. And so, we don't need to give all of our money to it. We just need to make sure that the money that's going to it goes to where it's supposed to be. So I am exactly expecting that Dan Malone, the executive director of DESC, go to hell, which he will. But they will shackle him and drag him through the courts. That's their business. I am not here to police the system. I'm only here to bring attention to the city that the soul of the city is at stake. Because, if more people continue to die on your watch and on our watch, then there isn't anything Christian about anything that represents the God and the union of the liberty of our Constitution. So, let's be innovative and stop fucking around here. This is pretty serious stuff. That Margaret King is foolish. That fucking Faye. That bitch, that fucking Ryan Mackey. Yankee, those people are filthy people. I've never seen anything like it, and they've tried to endanger me and imprison me and what? It isn't going to happen. I'm smarter than that. But please stop allowing them to kill people with the money that's being provided by our good citizens and by the money that I've paid in my taxes. Previously, we have to save the rest, or we'll all be damned.